Hey everybody. So today my lesson is going to be about lighting. Just a really quick introduction to lighting. Lighting's like a huge subject, so we're only going to kind of touch on the surface of it, but I wanted you to sort of dip your feet in enough so that you could complete project one, because there will be some lighting that you'll need to do in order to finish up that project. So we're just going to kind of go over the basics. And in order to do that, we're going to start a new project. So go ahead and launch, open Epic Games Launcher and then launch 4.27. And we're going to create a new project. We'll call it Exercise3. I think we're on 3 now, right? That sounds about right. And as always, that process might take more or less time for you, depending on what you got going on. So we'll select games, as always, and then because this is a home project, we'll select first person, and then turn off starter content. Call this Exercise 3. And create project. Okay, and here we are in a brand new project. So first thing we're going to do, what I'd like to do is create a new folder, call it levels. This is where we're going to stick our maps or levels. And we're going to create a new level. I'm going to call this one Day. Go ahead and double click that. Save. And now we have a brand new empty level called Day. And, as we've done before, we're going to populate this level with sort of our basic stuff. First thing we'll do is go to lights and drag in a directional light. Zero it out. And this should all be pretty familiar to you guys. And while I'm here, I'm going to change my middle mouse pan because I know said this a million times, but it makes me crazy. So if it makes you crazy too, go ahead and stop for a second to change that. So we have directional light. We need a skylight. And we need atmospheric fog. And now we have a sky. Yahoo! And we have light. So from here, what I'd like you to do is create a little scene. We're going to use the basic building blocks to create a little scene. And then we're going to light it. So first thing we'll do is drag out a plane, 0, 0, 0, and then we're going to scale it up. In order to scale it equally on all axes, we're going to go ahead and click this little lock button, which is a nice, convenient thing. I'll bump this thing up to 30. And now we have a plane that we can build stuff on. So just drag out some blocks as we've done before. More practice at this. What I would like you to do though is use these blocks to create like at least one interior space in here. And so what I'm going to do is drag out some cubes to make it, obviously it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's just in some place where we can block the light and then light it as an interior. And I don't know if you've seen this tip before, but if you hold Alt while you're dragging, you've probably done this by accident, you can duplicate whatever object you're dragging. So for example, I'll do that here. And it just slides off and again, if you're used to Max or Maya or something, you've probably done it by accident like 1,000 times, so it's probably not new to you. Okay, so now I've got an interior space. Actually, do one more block and then shrink this down so that I just have a sliver of light coming in. And then, yeah, I'll drag a few more things out, but, you know, take as much time as you want to compose, you know, an interesting scene. And then we'll get to the lighting part. So so we're going to do 3 levels. We'll create 3 different levels, and would like you to light them day, night, and then something crazy. And I'll explain what I mean when we get there. But for day, what I'd like to do is go in and adjust the direction of the directional light. And to do that, we'll rotate it. And you can choose whatever like time of day, but as long as it's daylight. And then rotate it. And so now our light is at an angle. And our shadows are going to be a little more interesting. I want the interior space to have a little bit of light kind of poking into it, and we'll see the how the ambient and the GI light the interior. Just, you know, to give you an idea of what's going to happen when you hit bake. So you've probably gotten used to seeing this little red lighting needs to be rebuilt thing. So this is kind of the tip of an iceberg of a much bigger subject, but when you bring an object into the viewport, it can come in as either a static object, stationary, or movable. And what that means is a static object stays where it is. It doesn't change in any way. A stationary object maintains its position, but it can change in other ways. In the case of a light, a stationary light would be one that doesn't move its position or orientation, but it can change its intensity or color. And in the case of a movable object or light, obviously it's one that throughout the course of a game session, it can move around freely. And these are important because the way Unreal handles lighting each of these objects and these lights is different. So it has a number of different lighting technologies, like layering on top of each other. And so when it says lighting needs to be rebuilt, what it does is it calculates static lighting, which is lighting that doesn't move, for the scene. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. So you can see on your menu, you've got a build option. Right next to it, you have the little triangle, which is where you have more options. Go ahead and click that and then select build lighting only. And it'll go through a rendering process. And it will calculate lighting for all static objects and static and stationary lights. And you can see now our shadows are not pitch black, but we have global illumination acting on them. Our interior is dark, but you can make it out. The one thing that doesn't seem to be affected is our sky. And we know that our sky, the atmospheric fog, should be affected by the light. There's something we need to do to enable that. So go ahead and select your directional light. And then under details, scroll down until you get to the atmosphere and cloud section. And then under where it says atmosphere sunlight, turn that on. And now the sky, the atmospheric fog, understands that this directional light, out of all the lights we could have in a scene, this is the one that is the sun. And it now changes the sky accordingly. And you'll notice as well that we have a sunlight up there. And as you rotate your directional light, the orientation of the sun will follow. Pretty cool. And let's go ahead and do another bake now that we've changed the sky. And we'll get a slightly different result. You notice that the shadows are much more blue because our sky changed color a little bit to match the orientation of the directional light or the sunlight. So that's it for day. I think that once you get to this point, you create a scene with some interest in it and then light it sort of a generic daytime scene. That'll do it for day. Go ahead and save everything. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate this level. So go ahead and hit duplicate, and then it'll create a new one. Name it night, and then double click it. Save selected, and now we have another, a duplicate of that scene. Now what I'd like to do is change this one to be night. And in order to do that, we're going to change the orientation of this light a little bit, but more, we're going to change its intensity. So in order to do that, we go into the details panel. And for every object, including lights, as we know, the details panel has options for us. And for this directional light, we have the option to change its intensity, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. So if we want a night scene, we're going to want to dial down the intensity. So it's, I don't know, like a moon or something. And we can change, a couple of other things. But the only thing we really want to change for this is the intensity. Maybe, we could play with it and change the light color, but I think the intensity is all we need to change. You'll notice that we drop the intensity of the